Yeah.
Elston McCowan is our preacher this morning, and we're going to do this in an interview style. And so, first of all, what I'd like for you to do is just to introduce yourself somewhat. Why don't you tell us something about your credentials in the Baptist Church, where you've served, that sort of thing, because you are emerging from the Baptist tradition.
Yes, indeed. Good morning, everybody. Glad to be home. Miss all of you all very, very much. As Dave was asking, I was ordained in 2021 in the Baptist tradition. I served as pastor of Star of Grace Missionary Baptist Church for 21 years. 21 years.
Should have been
17 years.
Yeah, but 2001 maybe.
2000. What did I say?
2021.
Oh, I get excited.
Which is where we are now.
Okay, 2001, and I served as the pastor there for 17 years. Started going back to school here recently. I'm in the MDiv program, the Master's of Divinity program at Eden Theological Seminary, where Joyce happens to be my wife, and I are attending together, and we'll be graduating next year, as a matter of fact. Yeah, and today's my birthday. Woohoo!
Yes.
Thank you.
Not to put too fine a point on it there, but you also have connections with the NAACP, I know. Could you tell us something about that? What do you do with the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People?
Well, it's one of the oldest civil rights organizations in the world, and I happen to be the first vice president for the St. Louis City chapter of the NAACP, and I also serve as their Environmental Justice Committee chair. I have some other committee chairs I serve, but for the purpose of our discussion today, I serve as the Environmental Justice Chair for the city.
Thank you. So with those credentials, and as a minister and as an environmental justice interested person, I want to point us back to Psalm 8, which we heard just a moment ago, brilliantly presented and interpreted. What themes do you notice most in Psalm 8 that you want us to be paying attention to today? That's an excellent question. Here's what I like to say about Psalm 8. The verse in Psalm 8 talks about God gave us dominion over God's creation. And what ends up happening, you have two opposing interpretations or translations or actions that people take on it. One is how, particularly, let's say this, how does the Native American see the land versus how we see it? And I say we, I say Western culture sees it. The Native Americans always saw it as living with the land as opposed to living on the land. Saw it taking care of the land and the land taking care of them, as opposed to us just taking whatever we want from it and our dominion over it. It's a dominating word that says that we are supposed to take control of the birds and take control of the whales and take control of the fishes and all the cattle and all the stuff that God had created. And the reality of it is that we're supposed to take care. And I think the Cliff today brought that out with the jazz musicians, and everybody else brought that out, that we're supposed to take care of the land. And so I hate to go along so long, but the point I want to make is that when our earth is in trouble, we were giving the particular co-creative intellect to help the earth and the planet. And so when the fishes got in trouble, we're supposed to be creative enough to figure out a way to get them out of trouble, not to be the cause of their trouble. Okay. All right. So, and some of what's happening with regard to our failure to tend the earth or to take care of the earth the way that you're saying, is I'm perceiving is found in climate change, is found in mass extinctions.
Absolutely.
We're seeing the results of our failures to behave in ways that we're called to do.
Absolutely.
We usually think of this responsibility having to do with the care of the air and the water and the land, and I think that most of us can imagine this in a rural setting, maybe in a wilderness setting, in a global setting. How does this apply in an urban setting where we are?
That's another good question. Yeah, it's in an urban setting. It manifests itself in all sorts of ways, particularly air pollution, drinking water. We created this wonderful system of everybody having nice, fresh water coming into their homes. And what we did years ago is that we thought lead was the end all, the be all, the end all. It was just the stuff. We put lead in paint. It made it shine better. We put lead in our gas. It made our cars run better. We just thought lead was just excellent. And what we found out is that, we made lead piping. And so a lot of our houses have lead pipes in them. And that causes our children to have lead. There's a recent study and it was reported in the Missouri Independent, and it was by the Boston College, and they were in cooperation with Quest. The diagnostic,
Quest Diagnostics.
Quest Diagnostic, yes. And what they found is, hold on to your seatbelts, 80% of all the children in Missouri have lead.
80% of all children?
In Missouri.
Not just African American
Not
children.
just African American children.
80% of all children in Missouri have some lead in their system.
Lead in their system. And here EPA says that there's a certain level of lead that you can have that they will accept. There's absolutely no level of lead in the human body for children or for seniors or our ages or older that's acceptable. Lead, of course, as you know, leads to behavioral problems, leads to low grades in school, it leads to speech impairments. Lead poisoning for children is really devastating for their entire future. And I have a theory. We talk about the school to prison pipeline. Well, if 80% of our children have high levels of lead, then that causes folks to do bad things just because they're kids. And then you end up having that lead in your system and you're a child, that really has you doing extraordinary things that get you in trouble. And so when Russell, my friend who's visiting us today, when we were kids, the worst we would probably do would throw spitballs. But now, Dave, you got folks throwing other things in classrooms and getting them sent to the principal and getting them suspended from school. And then that carries on and it goes and follows you for the rest of your life. And now I would tell you this, that with 80% of your children in Missouri, black and white, having certain levels of lead in their system, if you have 4.5%, that's considered lead poisoning. And that would be disproportionate to African Americans.
Okay.
That African Americans would more likely have more cases of lead poisoning.
Okay.
And the only thing that offset that lead poisoning or lead in your system is eating fresh vegetables and fruit. And if you're in the inner city and you live in a food desert, you don't have access to fresh vegetables and fruit to kind of offset the effects of lead poisoning. Yeah.
Well, what can we do about this?
Well, that's one of the reasons why we're here today. We're starting here at the church. And First Church, one of the reasons why you call First Church, because you're first. You're first on my list of people to talk to about this. So I'm not only here as a member of First Church, but I'm also here as a member of the St. Louis City NAACP. And as a matter of fact, we're starting a statewide campaign to come to talk to faith-based communities
Yeah.
about this issue and mobilize us to be those voices for those children. And we talk about social justice. You've heard me say before that we're to be a voice to the voiceless. Well, children, the Bible just got to talking to us about that today, that out of the mouth of babes you have perfected praise and you have been a bulwark against those avengers. And so when children are crying, and they're crying because they have lead in the system, they don't have to go, we know that is a problem that they're hurting. And so I'm mobilizing and asking you all to be a voice. We're going to do a legislative campaign. We're going to be introducing legislation in Jefferson City. When you talk about infrastructure monies, we need to change these pipes. We need to get removed. So that's going to take a lot of money. But one thing I know about us is that we share this planet together. And I'm semi-quoting Kennedy, paraphrasing Kennedy. He said that we all share this planet together. He says that we all are concerned, we breathe the same air, and we're concerned about our children's future. And I believe that the faith community is concerned about our children's future. Nobody that I know of has been giving more of a charge to take care of the children, orphans, widows, the less fortunate than anybody than the church. And so that's where I'm going to start from, is the church, and begin to ask folks to join us in lending your voices and your bodies to help our children who can't organize and don't have a right to vote like we do.
Well, thank you. First of all, I have to say the Psalm 8, the interpretation of young children crying out and forming a bulwark for their foes, I think is really a strong and powerful image. And I thank you for sharing that.
Thanks for having me.
And I think that's all for right now. I am sure that the congregation will have their own questions.